And I think I must have mentioned one day, I don't really know, I can't really remember the conversation, but I think I must have mentioned one day to Luce that, oh, I quite fancy doing a triathlon one day. And she entered me. She entered me into the London Triathlon for 2004, and it all sort of went from there.
And that's the voice of this episode's guest, Pete Eggleston. And it was Pete's wife, Lucy, who got in touch after I'd posted on social media about wanting the next round of guests to come on the podcast and share the story. So I messaged Lucy back and said, tell him to drop me an email and get in touch, and we'll get something set up. And that's exactly what he did. And Pete, as you'll hear, has been in the sport quite a long time, since 2004, and he's worked his way through the ranks, culminating in double gold world champion at the long distance. And he's also wrote a book, and it's about his experiences in triathlon, and it's available on Amazon, and you can get it from there. I shall put the link in the show notes. And the title of the book is What Has Triathlon Ever Done For Me? And I've got a copy that he kindly sent me and signed in front of me, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. So that's today's guest, Pete Eggleston, and I hope you enjoy his story, his journey. And I really did enjoy chatting to him, and thoroughly enjoyed listening to him. So that's coming up. The weeks are just flying by. We've got another spell of really good weather, and we've been training with the club quite a bit, because there's about 13 of them that are doing the Bassetlaw Triathlon this weekend coming up. And we've been doing a bit of group riding and transition practice, and it's been good fun, and they're all doing really well. And I'm not racing, Mrs. C's racing, and I'm looking forward to supporting and encouraging and seeing how they all get on. So good luck to them all. Like I said, there's about 13 of them doing it from the club, which is, for such a small club, I think that's probably 50% of the club, actually, because we're a small club. But good to see. So that's pretty much what we've been doing over the last fortnight, getting some practice in for that and helping support the athletes that are doing it. As I said, I'll put a post out after more guests for the podcast. I've had a couple of replies, which has been nice. And if you're an age group athlete and you've represented your country, please do get in touch over the socials, or you can drop us an email, and all the details will be at the end of the podcast. Just get in touch and come on the podcast and do like Pete's done, and over 100 other age group athletes, and share your story and inspire others. We can't do this podcast without you. So please do get in touch and come on the pod. On a personal level, the swimming is still going on. Getting in at least 2 times a week into the pool and trying to get my form back and a bit of pace, ready for potentially open water triathlon at the end of this month. It's going all right. It's just getting there's the hardest thing, but I'm doing okay, so I'm quite happy with that. And just supporting and ticking over, really. It's a bit strange, like I've said previously, to have had all your races early on in the year and the goals that you set yourselves done by July. So it's just about enjoying well, not necessarily downtime, but enjoying the different type of training, and I was out for a long ride on Sunday, which on my own, which I haven't done for a long time, but it reminded me of when the kids were really little and I used to take myself off on my bike. This was before Mrs. C even had a bike. I used to take myself off for an hour or so on a Saturday or a Sunday morning and just go and do a good few miles and enjoy the countryside, and that's what I did on Sunday, and it was really nice. Absolutely scorching day, but yeah, we've got some really nice countryside around the Shire. Just have to be careful of those tractors and combine harvesters because they're out in force this time of year. But yeah, really enjoyed the ride. So yeah, just ticking over and just enjoying it. So here's a couple of podcast recommendations that I've listened to over the last fortnight. And the first one is from the Strength for Endurance podcast. And the title of the episode was, Do You Have a Highly Physical Job but Also Want to Excel in Endurance Sport? And he basically goes on and discusses about people who have demanding jobs physically, such as gardeners, builders, farmers, hospitality staff, etc. And he looks into high step counts, repetitive physical tasks, or constant lifting with this type of work. And it plays a high demand on your body. And he was pretty much saying that we should really take into consideration this load when we're undertaking a high volume endurance training program. And it's not something that I really thought about up until probably earlier on in the year or the end of last year when I was having a discussion with somebody. And I think it was one of the guests who was also a physical trainer, and she was basically saying that, on top of her classes that she lifts weights in general, she's got training that she's got to fit in, and it's all part of it. And you know, being a gardener myself, you just don't think of it really. I hadn't really thought that after doing a physical day's work, then that's going to affect the way you perform in your training sessions. So yeah. Anyway, a good episode, that really worthwhile having a listen to. Really enjoyed that one. And the second one is from the Purple Patch podcast, and Matt Dixon is talking about running smarter and not harder, the proven formula for speed without suffering. And he goes into 5 components of running, from cardiovascular conditioning, muscular resilience, tissue durability, economy of movement and biomechanics. And he emphasises the importance of frequent and easy running, strength training, and leveraging multi-sport workouts to build resilience and reduce injury risks. So yeah, very knowledgeable chap, really worth a listen on that one, for anybody who's suffering in the runs. So those are 2 recommendations for this episode. I hope you enjoy them if you give them a listen. And yeah, now it's time for the main event. Oh, before we do that, just a brief word about the T100 that happened on Sunday. Watched that with Mrs. C. Pretty much all day. Was it Sunday or Saturday? Saturday, I think, actually, thinking about it. Yeah, pretty much all afternoon. We just sat and watched it, and it was really 2 really good races. And congratulations on the female side to Lucy Charles Barclay, because that was a performance that I don't think anybody had, probably other than Lucy and her team themselves, had saw coming. And it was so nice to see that she was back and, beating a strong field. So yeah, it was nice to see that she's got back after all the ups and downs that she's been through. And speaking of ups and downs in the men's, Hayden Wild, I don't know whether you know Hayden's story, having crashed about 90, I think they were talking about 98 days ago over in Japan. If you've not seen any of his YouTube videos, I would highly recommend you go back and watch the series of his, first of all, his injury and what happened. He had a crash on his bike over in Japan, and how he's recovered from, he had broken ribs, he had punctured lungs, he had 2 plates put in his shoulder. Yeah, he was really going through the mill, but the YouTube videos, they show his progression at each episode. And on Saturday, he just smashed it. It was just so good to see. After watching, the videos that he's done and having a bit of an investment in, the last one that we'd seen, he didn't even know whether he was going to make the start line. And to come away with a win like he did was just phenomenal. He's an incredible athlete. So, yeah, 2 really good performances, really entertaining races, and, really enjoyed that. So that is it. Now we are going to go and listen to the main event. Hope you enjoy Pete's story, and we shall see you on the other side. Well, firstly, like I said, thank you to Lucy, your wife, for reaching out in the first place and then pointing you in the right direction and coming on the podcast. Much appreciated, because obviously we can't do this without you guys. So if you'd just like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for your time and the opportunity. My name's Pete Eggleston, and I'm sort of rapidly. I'm in my later 50s. Still a little bit of way to go to the big 60, but heading that way. And I have been competing in triathlon for a while now, since 2004. I'm from Sheffield originally, but moved down south when I was reasonably young. Had my Sheffield accent beaten out of me at school, and and now reside in Cheltenham, which is where my wife Lucy's family are from. I had no sporting background, as I think quite a few folks on your podcast have said. I had no sporting background whatsoever, and certainly no talent whatsoever. I did a bit of team sport at school. It was a fairly average state school, so we didn't have loads of facilities, and there's no opportunity to swim or anything like that. So I played a bit of football, a bit of rugby, a bit of cricket, but none of it to a particularly high standard at all. Went to university, sort of stopped playing sport really then, and got into work, and then just became quite inactive for quite a few years, and didn't woke up one day and thought, I don't really like where this is headed, and I really probably do need to do something about it. But not having any endurance sport background at all, you just I did what sort of, I guess, was the most convenient and easy, and just started to do a bit of running, and it sort of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the story of so many, like you alluded to there, of so many guests that we've had on the podcast. Got much of a background whatsoever, and then here we are on this podcast achieving so much that a lot of, well, I don't know what the percentage we would be in society doing this sort of thing, but it wouldn't be very high, would it?
No, it's a bit weird how life can evolve, isn't it?
It is. But I think like you said, you go through stages of your life, and life takes over, doesn't it? University, you get that all important job, and that's it. And then you get married,
absolutely.
and then the next thing you've got mortgage, kids, and everything else. And what's sport? It's like it's nothing, is it? It's inconsequential. You're just focusing on everything else. But then you get, like you've just said, you get to a point of you look at yourself or wake up one day and think, this is like you did. And so why running then? Why did you get, just because it was easy to do?
Yeah, weird really, because I hated cross country at school.
So many people say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely hated it. I always used to be the one at the back trying to hide, and I think I started running just because it's obviously convenient. You don't really need anything, a pair of trainers, and you can just sort of get going. But I did that classic, well, especially blokes, we're really bad at it, where you just, I don't know, even though by this point, I was probably, I don't know, early 30s. You just start running, and you don't do any research, you don't follow any program, you just start running, and guess what? You just start getting injured a lot as well, because you're a bit of an idiot, and you run through injuries, and you run through niggles, and you get more injured, and so I was liking running. I actually found myself quite enjoying it, which surprised me. But I then got very frustrated with just getting injured, and it was just driving me a bit mad. Um, but I still wanted to just carry on being active, and I didn't really sort of. I thought I'd gone past that point where I could go and get involved in a team sport again or anything like that. And I think I must have mentioned one day. I don't really know. I can't really remember the conversation, but I think I must have mentioned one day to Luce that I quite fancy doing a triathlon one day, and she entered me. She entered me into the London Triathlon for 2004, and it all sort of went from there.
And how did you hear about triathlon then? How did that enter you?
Yeah, I can't remember if I'm honest. I really can't remember because this would have been back in 2000. I mean, I ran the London Marathon in 2003
Right.
and had an absolute shocker. Loved it, but just was shocking. And I think it must have been sometime between then and New Year's Day. I must have heard about triathlon from somewhere because it was on New Year's Day. We were probably a bit hungover on New Year's Day morning, and it was then that Lucy entered me to the London Tri. And so, yeah, I don't really know how I came across it. It may have been that I was aware there was a local club because we were living in St Albans at the time, and
Okay.
a local club there called Triforce, and it may have been that I'd come across them in some way. I'm not sure. But then I joined them soon after entering this race, and that was great.
And were you, when you were running, were you part of a club then, or did you just go and do it yourself?
No, no, I was always pretty solo.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. But then when I started triathlon, I did join the club Triforce,
Yeah.
and they were really good. And it was the best thing I should have done because, I mean, I knew nothing, quite literally nothing.
Mm.
Um, couldn't swim and all the rest of it. So it was really good to sort of get involved with these guys. They were very welcoming, and there's some really nice people there, and it was had a really nice vibe, really nice feel to it. I didn't go to all the sessions, but I did some of the coach swim sessions. Went on some of the rides together, just sort of to get a bit more, I don't know, involved in the whole thing and understanding what it was, and that was great. I'm really grateful to all of the people there that sort of made me feel very welcome and showed me the ropes.
Yeah, I think a club environment's great for that, isn't it? Because going in as a newbie, there's so much knowledge, not just about the three disciplines, but everything else that goes around.
Yeah,
And you pick up, and even if you don't ask questions, you're watching people and seeing what
yeah,
they do and races that they enter, and you know what I mean, the goals that they're aiming for. It's you like soaking it up as a sponge, but you don't even realize you're doing it at the time.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there was some. It was quite nice because they had a lot of beginners in the club, but they also had some very talented athletes, and they had some elites in there. So there was a guy that was racing elite duathlon for Great Britain, Mike Jubb, and there was another guy who was racing elite at the time, a guy called Darren Treadaway. Um, I think the club was it was also Dan Corner was involved. He was also someone that was racing at the highest level back then, and so there were some incredibly talented athletes in the club as well. And they were just you just looked at these guys and oh my God, these guys are incredible. And that's how I came across the GB thing because I say
Right.
some of them were racing sort of
Okay.
elite for GB and also some age group stuff. And
Yeah.
that's when you realise, well, they just seem like, athletic gods. You think, my God, absolutely amazing. Just in awe of these people.
Yeah. We've had Mike Jubb on the podcast.
Yes, you have. I listened to that one. Yeah.
Really nice guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice guy.
Yeah. So he was in the club when I joined, and was one of obviously I say he was. I think at that point he was still in the elite duathlon
Mm.
years of his career. So
Yeah, yeah, cool. So, how did you develop then? Obviously, you learned to swim a bit better, and you found out about the biking.
yeah,
Sprint triathlon first, and then develop.
yeah. The first race was May 2004, and it was a sprint race, just a local sprint race that the club hosted um, in Hatfield. It's still running today, actually, HSV Tri, and it was brilliant. I saw my cat's about to jump on the desk, so I might get interrupted.
That's all
Sorry.
right. We
Is
can
that all
edit.
right?
My phone's just gone off, so don't worry about
Here he is. Um, so that's Ziggy. And
that.
anyway,
Ziggy, I had
yeah,
a
so it was a
dog
sprint
called Ziggy.
triathlon. And even though it was, I was on like a little hybrid bike and I was a mega amateur. Um, I absolutely loved it. It was just brilliant. I got lost on the bike course, got very annoyed with myself. I just remember making mistakes and just being a bit of a numpty, but just really being hooked on day one. I just thought
Mm.
this is just great, and entered a few races that summer, including doing that London Tri in 2004. That was in the August, and I was just completely hooked straight away. I can't really explain why. I would say with the background I'd had and never really coming across the sport before, but straight away I just thought this is brilliant. I just loved it, and then just I don't know, it just feeds on itself then, doesn't it? It just becomes quite a
Yeah.
positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
My training had no structure, no plan, nothing. It was just completely random. But I was really enjoying what I was doing, and I was going to the coach swim session. So swimming was starting to develop a little bit, but it would take. I mean, that's definitely one of the most frustrating things I've found. I was loving getting on the bike. I'd never ridden a bike before, other than I was a kid, just
Mm.
going around on your grifter. And so I was really enjoying the bike, and also I'd done a bit of running already. So yeah, I just really, really got into it. I loved the training and I loved the racing, and then when you do start to feel like you're getting a little bit better, it just starts that, I'd say, that sort of virtuous positive feedback loop. You think, oh well, that's good. I'll do a little bit more now and see if I can get a bit quicker, and so it goes. And so the obsession, probably use that word. It probably is an obsession, but a healthy obsession begins really.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's because you're surrounded then especially when you're part of a club, you're surrounded by like-minded people, and then it just becomes a lifestyle, doesn't it? And that's what
Very much so. We say
it.
that a lot.
Yeah,
Absolutely, very
yeah,
much a lifestyle.
it is from. I mean, from not just the exercise, but then you're a lot more careful about all the other aspects of your life. And I think as you get older, especially this happened to me, is like as you get older, you care more about what you eat, how much sleep you get, just
Yeah,
every aspect of your life, not just because of triathlon, but because you want to be better long have a better longevity, I guess, is where I'm going with this. But it all helps. And I think plus being in a club, you just you just feed off, like you said earlier, you just feed off everybody else, don't you? And
yeah.
you get dragged along.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, yeah, it was good, and it developed really quite quickly from there. Yeah, it was quite funny, really, looking back
Yeah.
how quickly you could sort of get absorbed into that world, and yeah, it becomes such an important part of your life.
Mm. Yeah. And I found that friends outside of those circles don't get it at all. They're just like, yeah, he's mad.
Oh, I get a lot of that. I get a
Yeah.
lot of that,
Yeah.
including from my 92-year-old friend Roy. He thinks I'm completely mad. He just thinks it's insane. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But that's good. Along the way, you'll have inspired loads of people. I'm dead sure about that.
yeah. Oh, I don't know. Hopefully,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. People on the quiet, they look at you and they think, if I could just do one of what he does, if I could just go for a run or get a bike or just go to the pool, you know what I mean? It's like you
yeah,
don't realize. I always think this. You don't realize what you know what effect you have on people that are not into it.
yeah,
In
yeah,
regions of their life, it's. I think it's quite. They think they look at us and they think, oh well, they're doing it, so I can do something.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. So after you built up your triathlon and where did it go from the first year, 2004? How did it
Yeah.
continue?
So yeah, so sort of the next couple of years, I just started to do a bit more, started to try and get a bit more understanding of how to train properly, and did quite a bit of, but still focusing on sprints and Olympic distance in sort of through '05 and '06. And then, well, I mean, I was getting better, but not by leaps and bounds. I was just gradually getting a little bit better, but just loving it and loving the racing, and it was great. Um, and then in 2000, I think it was 2007 that I really started to think about the GB world, because I knew about these guys in the club, and I remember thinking, wow, that the thought of being able to do that and race for your country, obviously as an amateur in a 5-year age group, and I know that a lot of people look down the nose at it, and there's quite a lot of sort of sneering and all the rest of it. But back then I was thinking, wow, that just sounds like would be such an achievement for someone who had absolutely zero sporting talent to be able to one day go and do that would just be incredible. So I started to think about whether that would be possible, and I started to look at the qualifiers in 2007 um, for the following year's World Championships, which were due to be in Vancouver in 2008. And back then, for the World Champs, the qualifying process was pretty much as it is now. In that, there were three qualifying races, and there were top four guaranteed, and then there were sort of roll down slots and everything else. Whereas the European Championships back then, there weren't qualifying races. It was done like the middle distance races is done today, where you just submit your best standard distance time, and if you were within a certain percentage of the winner, you got in. You were ranked by that, and if you were in the top 20 of that, you got in the team. So I thought the European Championships in 2008 were in Lisbon, and the World Championships were in Canada. So I thought in 2007 I'll give it a go. I was still on a road bike and taking it more seriously, but I thought I'll see where I am, and it was such a humbling experience. It was absolutely. I turned up for the first qualifier that year, and I think it was early June. I think it was it was Shropshire Olympic distance race, and Ellesmere, and I remember looking in transition and seeing, obviously a very, very serious field of athletes, because it was the first qualifier as well. That tends to get a pretty punchy field always, because everyone's looking to get a slot early. And I remember standing in transition, looking around me, thinking, being quite overwhelmed and thinking, wow, this is this is something else. And I think I came 25th in my age group. And so I was some way from those top four slots. And I remember, driving home that day with Lucy, just thinking, my God, I'm never going to manage that. That's just ridiculous. It was humbling and felt humiliating experience. But I thought, okay, well, I'll crack on. And there was another couple of attempts that year. I think one of the qualifiers was at Northampton. I think I came 24th in my age group. And I was doing a decentish time, but and I was doing a PB for me, so I was still thinking, okay, well, if this is the best I've got, and I'm still so far away, I was in the 35 to 39 age group at the time, looking to go up. The following year, I'd be going up to 40 to 44. So still nowhere near. And then the last race of the year, it was at Bala, and my mum and dad lived up in North Wales, and I did that Bala race a few times over the years, the standard distance and the middle distance. And it was always a nice way of sort of, catching up with mum and dad. So the last qualifier of the year was this Bala race, and I thought, right, this is it. I've got to go for it. And I had a good day, and it was, again, the best I'd ever raced. And the course suited me, but I still didn't get in that top four slot. I can't remember exactly where I came now, but I was probably, I don't know, I think I was probably 8th or 10th or something in the age group. I can't remember. Still some way down, but I had a really, really good day. And I thought, okay, well, who knows on the roll down? I'll just forget about it now, and we'll just see what happens. And back then, the way that it used to happen is that it wasn't. I used to travel a lot with work at the time, and it was some weeks later, and I had a call from home. I was away in Korea. I was in Seoul in a hotel, and I think Lucia told me that British Triathlon were trying to get hold of me. I was thinking, why is that? Anyway, I called this person back, and it was the age group manager for Vancouver. And back then, the way it worked is they'd call round as they were going down the roll down and ask you if you wanted the slot or not. And if you didn't, obviously it would go down to the next person. So I got this call from the age group manager to say, do you fancy this roll down slot for the world champs? I just couldn't believe my ears. This Bala result had actually managed it, and I was absolutely stoked. I knew it was a roll down, and I knew I was still a long way from being at that pointy end of the age group field, but I was so excited. It was fantastic. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely brilliant.
That in itself's an amazing. Those three races that you've done, 25th, 24th, and then 8th. What an improvement! But that also goes to show and I say this all the time, it's not just about you alluded to it there. The first race is always busy because everybody wants to qualify and get it out the way. So all these things, it's very technical, should we say, about
Totally.
qualifying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just going up and racing and being your best. It's about choosing races
Yeah,
that
yeah, got to
suit
be
you, like
smart.
that last one. Who's going to be there? And
Mm.
when I'm talking to people, so I don't think I can qualify, and I'm thinking, well, you're not far off on the time. You pick the right race with maybe not the top people in that race. You look at the finer detail, and you've got a better shout. And I think a lot of people don't look at that. They just go and race and hope for the best.
Yeah,
There's a lot more
yeah.
to it.
No, definitely need to try and apply some strategy to it. It's yeah, it pays dividends to do that. And for me that year, I was just all in. I thought I'd try every qualifying race and just see how it goes. And
Mm.
and that also got me a spot for the European team in Lisbon. So that was really my first experience of the GB experience was the following May 2008, going to Lisbon. Um, and it was just fantastic trip. I loved it. I really did. We had a brilliant age group manager, Scott Murray. He was really inspirational. He was a really really good manager, one of the best managers I've had and I've done quite a lot of it now over the
Mm.
years. And he was fantastic. And the trip to Lisbon was brilliant. And I just had, as I've heard quite a few of your other guests say, you just often you go into that first experience very much with a huge dose of imposter syndrome, thinking, well, I'm just a bit of a chopper at the back of the age group field. I don't know what I'm doing here. I had got a time trial bike by then, so I didn't feel quite so sort of fraudulent. But I I turned up at that Lisbon race thinking, well, I've got one goal, and that really isn't to come last. So I just
Mm.
don't want to come last. And I would really love not to be the last GB athlete as well, because I want to try and justify the selection for the team. And I just had the race of my life. I ended up coming seventh, and I was the first GB guy home, and it blew my mind.
Wow.
And I think a lot of that probably stemmed from after getting that call in that hotel room in Korea in probably October or November the previous year to say you got this slot. I remember coming home from that business trip thinking, right, I am going to absolutely work my backside off this winter to try and make sure I minimize this imposter syndrome. I look back now, so I've kept my training diaries and logs, and that winter was probably the first winter where I had a really structured program. I was still self-coached, but I'd read a lot by then, and I started to put together a much more structured program for myself. And I really started to do some really hard workouts. I think so far I almost felt I've been a bit sort of, I don't know, playing around with it
Mm.
at the edges, but I really focused that winter. It was very systematic and progressive, and really really worked hard. And I think that just moved me forward quite significantly. And so yeah, that experience in Lisbon was just incredible.
Just going back to your point about the team manager, what made him stand out then?
The thing I particularly remember is he got us all together the night before the race, and it wasn't sort of the official team briefing thing that I know obviously happens. It was more of a just get together to have a bit of a chat the night before the race, and we were sitting outside. I remember sitting outside the hotel, and he just gave us a little bit of I suppose you call it almost like a pep talk, but it was it was very inspirational, his words.
Mm.
And it sends shivers down your spine. He's sitting there thinking about it, and he was talking about just go out. You're here, you're racing for Great Britain. You go out and be great, and the whole thing just really got my juices flowing. And he was really good, and he was really animated on race day as well on course. Very very passionate, very passionate, and that is infectious, totally infectious. And yeah, he was a very, very impressive team manager. He was great.
That was nice. And then just to your points about your goals for that race, not wanting to be last and not wanting to be last GB. I think that goes for nearly everybody I've spoken to about, when they go
I have heard
racing.
it a lot.
That's it. I know I'm not going to trouble Ian Gravers, but I don't want to be last and I don't want to be last GB
Yeah,
in that order.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
totally.
so true.
Yeah. But it's amazing how things then change because I came home from that race in Lisbon and I was looking through the results. And although I was seventh, I looked through the results and I was only about 90 seconds away in an Olympic distance race from bronze.
Mm,
And I thought, well, if I could actually swim better than a sodding house brick, that would be doable because my bike had been really good, and the run had been pretty good. So I thought, my God, I could even maybe one day, possibly, maybe even maybe get on the podium kind of thing. And you think, wow, that is bonkers. So then the goalpost, in the space of probably 6, 9 months, the goalpost shifted to thinking, I'd love to one day get a medal
mm,
somewhere,
mm.
somehow. So that's the focus then shifted to that.
Yeah, yeah. But isn't it good that you've got that first one, and then you've got another goal pretty much because of that set, whereas you're not far off. You want a medal. I think it's
Yeah,
that progression, isn't it?
yeah,
So good, and
yeah.
that's how it goes on, isn't it?
It definitely does.
It
Yeah,
works the other way as well. If you don't do so well in a race, well, next time you go, you want to do better than you did last time.
yeah.
So it's really good like that. So what came next then? I mean, that was 2008, and you've covered a lot of ground since then, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, I have. And so, probably to not bore you too much, I probably won't go through it all because there's quite a few years of experience with them. I mean, I think I've raced about 140 races over the years. So there's a lot covered. And from there, as I say, the goalpost shifted to focusing on maybe trying to get a medal. Um, I didn't manage that until 2013, and I got silver at the European Championships. And that was a very special day. And in 2013, the World Championships were in London
All
in
right.
Hyde Park. So it was obviously the year after the Olympics,
Mm.
and we had the World Champs in London. And I decided, right, I was all in for that, and I was going to totally focus on trying to do the best I possibly could at those World Champs in Hyde Park, and threw everything at it. And the silver medal in Turkey that earlier that year had really given me a lot of confidence getting on the podium. And then I won my age group at the national champs in Liverpool that summer, which was also a really special day. And I thought, okay, well, I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been, and that's when I set all of my run PBs, for example. It's been a steady decline since 2013, which is 12 years now. So it's a long time to be going down a slippery slope. But 2013, I was all in for this race in September in Hyde Park. And looking back, I think I almost put too much pressure on myself. And I think it was probably detrimental to the performance. It was probably the strongest field I've ever raced in that kind of event. I mean, it was the age group was so large, it got split into two large waves.
Wow.
Um, and I don't know how many ended up finishing in my age group, but it was a hell of I think I was in 45 to 49. Um, and I ended up coming, I don't know, 13th or 14th or something, 13th, I think. And I was some way from the podium. And I remember being quite disappointed. But the standard was just ridiculous.
Mm.
And I remember being quite, I don't know, there was quite a lot of drafting, and I was a bit disappointed in my performance, and I was disappointed that I'd almost let it get to me too much. And I thought at that point that doesn't feel right to me. At the end of the day, I love doing what I'm doing. I really do. I love the training. I love the racing. Always have done, and I hope I always will. And if you're not loving it, that's not good.
Mm.
And I did love that day. I had a load of people there supporting me, and it was a very special day. But I do remember being disappointed with the performance. And again, I went off on a business trip that following Monday after the race and had some time to think about it. And I ended at that point thinking, okay, well, I think I'll do a bit of a shift now. And my physiology, I'm very much a diesel engine. I don't tend to have many fast twitch fibers at all, if any. And yeah, so from 2014 onwards, I've really focused on middle and longer distance, and I think it was the right shout because, say, my physiology is very much a diesel engine with no fast twitch fibers, so that sort of very much suits that sort of racing. But also, I'm relatively weaker swimmer, so when the swim becomes a smaller proportion of the race, it's obviously a good thing for someone like me. And so I ended up really focusing on that and progressively got better, which was nice because I'm at that age then, I'm heading into my 50s where especially the run starts to deteriorate. It's difficult to defy biology. Well, it certainly is difficult to defy it cleanly. And so I focusing on middle distance gave me something else to really get my teeth into and to learn. It's all about nutrition and pacing, and I really enjoyed it. And I won the European. I went back to doing then age group middle distance racing, and I was in the team for the European middle distance champs in Italy in 2015, and I won gold in the Europeans, and that was a really special day. So I'd gone from these goalposts of not coming last to maybe one day getting on the podium. Got on the podium in 2013, and I won the middle distance in 2015, and then I thought, okay, this felt really good, obviously, and I thought, right, I'd really like to target the worlds, and obviously I was doing the 70.3, the Ironman 70.3 worlds, but in the sort of, I do think triathlon's needs to sort itself out with all of its different governing bodies and jurisdictions and everything else. But so with the GB world, the long distance race was this sort of funny distance of harks back to the '03 days of 3K, 120K, and 30K. So I decided to focus on that. And I've been really consistent in that race. I've done that race now, I think probably 6 times. And the first couple of times I got silver. So I thought, okay, I've got silver at the World Champs, and this was fantastic. And I was just over the moon. And again, something I never ever thought I'd ever manage. And it may be you could argue that relatively the fields there aren't obviously as strong, and people I know, again, there's a bit of looking down the nose at that, but there's still some very strong athletes competing there. It's just that the field isn't as deep. So I got silver a couple of times, and then obviously the dream is all about getting on the top step. And I got the second time I got silver was 2019 in Pontevedra, and then obviously COVID and the pandemic hit, so that sort of put things on hold for a little bit. But I carried on racing, so I managed to race every year, including 2020, because we'd gone to Oman in the February and done the 70.3 there. So it was quite nice to be able to still race at least once that year. But anyway, so the next World Champs happened to be 2022 in Samarin in Slovakia, and I won, and it was just an incredible feeling. And I don't care what people say about, oh yeah, these sort of weekend warriors running around in the GB kit. I don't care. It felt fantastic. It was a really good feeling. It was a brilliant weekend. Again, another brilliant team manager, Dawn Hunter, who's just, I've known her a long time. She was superb. The whole atmosphere of the weekend was brilliant. The Collins Cup was on at the time, so there were loads of pros there. And it was a tremendous experience. And there's a German fellow I've raced many times over the years, a guy called Olaf. And at that point, he'd beaten me 6 times, and I'd never beaten him. It was Olaf 6, Pete nil. And he was at that race, and I saw him on the start line. I thought, oh God, here we go. Could well be 7-0. But I managed for the first time and only time. I don't think I've raced him since. Beat him and win gold, and it was just a brilliant feeling. And I did it again last year. It was down in Townsville in Australia, and I won gold there, which was also just as sweet because the Samarin race, the distances were shorter because they were fitting it in around the Collins Cup, whereas last year in Townsville it was the proper '03. So yeah, it was very much a dream come true. And I mean, the goalposts haven't moved anywhere else now, but they'd moved a long way from 2008, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what a journey, and what an accomplishment. Going from where you have to what you've and and not giving up when you got a bit disillusioned. That's the other thing. Just refocusing. I think that's a brilliant way, and I think that's the beauty of the sport, isn't it? Multi-sport itself. There's so many different aspects to it. You know, you duathlon, triathlon, aquathlon, aquabike. Um, but within triathlon itself, there's so many different distances that
Yeah,
you can refocus if you want, and try and give yourself a, like you exactly did. You know, you give yourself a different goal and go for that instead. You know, and you look at what you've done. It's just been amazing.
yeah, yeah. It was very special. And my mum, my mum always used to say to me when I used to say to her, you know, Mum, one day I'd like to be an age group world champion. And it didn't mean an awful lot to her, to be fair. And in true sort of mum fashion, you know, she'd sort of say, "Oh, I know one day you'll do that, Pete. I know you will," without any idea about
Yeah,
what was actually
yeah,
involved or
yeah,
anything. And I was really, it was very poignant and very sad because she died in September 2020 and never actually saw it happen. So crossing the line in 2022, she was definitely in my mind. I was thinking, well, actually, Mum, even though you had no idea what was involved
yeah. You were
or
right.
anything about it, you were right. It did happen.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, again, it's all your hard work and your tenacity that's got you there, isn't it? And that never give up attitude, which you definitely need for the longer distances.
You do, and that is something that I've written about. You know, that never give up thing. It's obviously, you know, it's not rocket science, and it's something people talk about a lot, but it's so important, and not just in the race itself, but over every sort of time frame you look at. Just keep going.
Mm,
You know, not every training session is going to be great. Not every race is going to be great.
mm.
But if you love what you do, just you know, you can just keep going.
Yeah.
I think it's when you lose the love of it that that becomes quite difficult to do the, you know, never give up thing. But as long as you're loving it, yeah, just don't give up. Just keep going. You just don't
And
know where
like,
it's going to take you, and don't set any boundaries.
yeah, and like we alluded to earlier, once it becomes part of your lifestyle, it's what you do. When you don't do it, you miss it so much, don't you?
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
that's the thing.
yeah.
Well, listen, that's a great story, and you've just mentioned about your book.
Oh yeah,
Do you
yeah.
want to tell us a little bit about the reasons behind writing it in the first place? Tell us what it's about. Tell people where they can find it.
Yeah,
You're not the first author that we've had on. We've had.
no,
I made a note
no.
actually because when I saw it, I made a note of the other guys that have written books. Brock Gibbs, the Canadian, he
Oh
wrote.
yes,
He,
yeah. I've
he,
raced him.
yeah. He wrote my co-workers think I'm a pro. That's really funny. I could definitely recommend that. And then Douglas Wood, he wrote the Renaissance Triathlete, and he sent me a copy of that, and that's a really good book as well. Looking at it from slightly different perspective. But yeah, so I'm going to get yours, and I will read it.
Oh, I'll send you one. Don't worry.
No, I will. No, I'll buy one of
No,
Amazon.
no. I'll send one. I'll send.
Well,
Well,
if you
I've got.
send it, if you do send me one, then I want it signed. Douglas kindly signed mine for me, so that would be ace. But yeah, tell us all about your book.
Yeah, well, I wrote it really because I'd like to write a novel, and I was told, I've heard over the years that to get some practice in writing, you should write about what you know first, and just get some practice at writing. So I thought, well, for the last 20 odd years, really, my life, a lot of it, other than obviously work's quite busy, but I've it's been triathlon, so I thought I'd write about that. And I started to, because I kept all my training logs, as I say, and diaries and everything. I thought about just looking back over that period from 2004 and thinking about what lessons have I learned, really, and not lessons in terms of how to get quicker on a bike, for example, or you know how not to try and fade in the run so much, but more broader lessons for life that I've learned from this sort of training and racing environment over the years. And so it's a little bit more thinking about what things, you know, and that's why it's called What Has Triathlon Ever Done for Me? Because it really is, triathlon has given me an awful lot. And so there's a lot of lessons I've learned, which I sort of draw out from just these experiences of these, you know, preparing for races and focusing on, you know, what I was trying to achieve and why, and thinking about the team you have around you, and it's impossible to fulfill any dream or potential without a fantastic team. Um, and so that's what it's fundamentally about. And yeah, it was never meant to be something that was published as such, but I got to the point where I sort of finished it and I wanted to get a copy for myself. And then you get involved with one of these self-publishing companies that do that for you. And before you know where you are, they put it on Amazon and it just sort of just snowballs and goes its own way. And you think, okay, well, fair enough, whatever. Um, but but it was really written for me to try and get some experience in writing. But I have quite enjoyed the process because it has made me look back and think about those experiences over that quite long time now racing and all the people we've met, and we've got so many friends from the sport, and we've been to so many places we would never have been to. And it's just been, it's been fantastic. And it was quite nice to actually go back and remember that, really.
Yeah. Nice walk down memory lane.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
think,
and there have been an awful lot of times in there where things have been really hard, and as we've just been saying, you just keep going. I was very ill back in 2017, and I was in hospital for quite a long time with very bad pneumonia, an infection that just went completely bonkers. And at one point, the respiratory consultant on the ward came to see me as part of his rounds, and he basically said, "Look, I always remember the phrase. He said, you've been hit by the biological equivalent of a bus. It's affected every organ in your body.
wow.
And I don't know when you'll be training again, but I wouldn't anticipate it'll be for 12 months kind of thing." And I remember lying there then thinking, oh my God, you feel like your whole world's just collapsed and ending. And you get through that. And it was only a few months after that that I still decided to, thankfully, Lucy told me I was planning on cancelling trips and cancelling races and all the rest of it. And I was obviously quite low. And not for the first time, I listened to the wise words of my wife, and she said, "Look, let's just see how you go." I got out of hospital, very slowly started building back, and 4 months later, got silver at the World Champs in Penticton. So it's those sorts of things you look back and then start to think about what happened. And it was good. It was good to do.
It's amazing. And again, that's another example of your tenacity and, you're there lying in a hospital and you haven't given up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I think that also being so fit in a way sometimes can be a detriment to things like that. But I do believe that because, and I know myself personally and a few of my friends who've been through life issues, they wouldn't probably be here if they weren't as fit as they were in the first place. So I do think
yeah,
being as fit as we are really, really helps when things like that come along. I think we
yeah,
get through it a lot. No, I wouldn't say easier, but better than a lot of people would. So,
yeah.
so well done on that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, they're going back to that thing about being mad. They all thought I was mad in the hospital because as soon as I could actually get out of bed and walk, which was a few days, I was still quite ill, but I was at least able to get to the loo and actually walk for a few steps. They'd have every morning, all the staff would have their morning meeting in the sort of the nurses' room at the end of the ward, and I'd be walking up and down by them, doing probably about 10 meters, turning around and doing 10 meters back again. And one day the nurse looked at me and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The toilet's over there. What are you doing?" I said, "No, I'm not going to the toilet." She said, "Well, what are you doing then? Are you all right?" I think she thought I was, I don't know, a bit, maybe she thought the antibiotics or the morphine had made me go a bit mad or something. And I said, "I'm doing some training." She said, "What do you mean you do some training?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've got to get training. I'm doing some training."
But
So yeah, they did think I was a bit mad.
but people don't get it, do they? They don't understand. I,
No.
I don't. I'm not going to go into it, but I had a heart attack when I was 46,
Oh,
and
crikey.
you know I was not your typical heart attack type,
No.
and I was in
Wow.
hospital, and they didn't know what to do with you. They just had no clue. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they don't really experience people like us that have those issues. So I can totally understand and appreciate how you were feeling, and what how they were sort of like treating and looking at you.
yeah,
It's like Yeah, yeah, it's just bizarre. Yeah, but yeah, I know you've said a few times about people sort of like these weren't the words that they used, but looking down on age group and the achievements and this and that and the other. And I just find that really well, it must be coming from people who don't do the sport, because if anybody does the sport, they would realize the amount of time and effort. It doesn't matter about the competition, just even before you get there. Like with all sport at all levels, that goes into what we do. You know what I mean? That wouldn't, if
Mm.
it was anybody of any worth, that just wouldn't enter their heads, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And I just had to say
yeah,
that because it's like, it's just, yeah, whatever. It's nonsense, isn't it?
yeah. No, I think so too. I mean, I would never. I think, whatever anybody wants to do and get out of the sport, really. I mean, some people it's all about, qualifying for Kona. Some people it's all about
Mm.
just having a nice time. Whatever. It doesn't really matter, does it? It's
No,
just,
you're active and you're doing something.
yeah, and you're doing something you love, and
Yeah.
just so what?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So just going back to your book, where can people find it?
It is on Amazon.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
It's just funny you self-published it. I had a guy on who started the 220 magazine. Um, he wasn't an age grouper, but I just had to get him on. He's called Duncan Robb, and that's the way that he started. He's an author now. He's wrote a couple of books, but that's exactly how he started. He wrote for the magazine, but then he did another book that wasn't a novel to get him into
Yeah.
writing. That just came to my head, yeah. And it's
Oh,
Duncan Robb. If you want to listen to his podcast. Anyway, thank you ever so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate it and really enjoyed listening to you. We've just got the quick fire round questions to go, and then
rightio.
I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. So
Right.
the first one is, what's your favourite bit of kit?
Oh, I know this is really boring because everyone says it, but it really is my bike. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't come with anything more interesting or creative. I
That's
love my
fine.
bike.
That's fine. Yeah, it is what it is. Your bike's your bike. What bike have you got?
Um, well, I have the good fortune of having a couple, a
Of course
few.
you have.
But my bike I race on the most is a Trek Speed Concept. Yeah,
Right. Cool.
yeah, I love
Good.
my bike.
And what's the best advice anybody's given you?
Oh God, there's been a lot of that over the years.
Mm.
Actually, I think some of the best advice I ever had. In fact, I think I might. Is it all right if I read it out to
That's
you?
it
I
is, yeah.
think I've got it somewhere here because it was advice. It was Lucy gave me, my wife gave me a quote when I was lying in hospital. I'll read out a clean version of it.
No, you can read out the dirty version and the clean, and then I can listen to the dirty one and edit it, so I get
Oh,
the
okay,
full
okay.
value.
So she gave me this quote, and it's really stuck with me. Basically, the shit that makes your heart beat faster and your eyes glow when you do it or talk about it, no matter if it's hiking, yoga, gardening, painting, sex, meditation, photography, going for walks, helping others, do that. Do it as often as you can because that's what life is about. Creating as many passionate, happy moments as possible. Don't let anyone stop you from doing the things you love, not even yourself.
Hmm, that's
I
cool.
just I just thought that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's really good and so true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, and I think if you have that, as I've talked about a lot already, if you just love what you're doing,
yeah,
you're in a very fortunate place.
100%. So what's been your favourite race or your favourite destination that you've raced at?
Oh, favorite race, I think has to be. We had the very good fortune to go to New Zealand last December for the 70.3 World Champs in Taupo,
Hmm.
and it was just fantastic. The town. In terms, I mean, you often get haters when as soon as you have to close roads and everything else, and you get people grumbling and all the rest of it. And there are always people grumbling. But in New Zealand, because there's been a race there for so long, and so many of the people that live there really embrace it. I mean, I think it's got a population of about 25,000, but
Hmm.
they had 10% of the population of people volunteering to help over the weekend. It's just mad.
Mm.
And it was so welcoming and so friendly and so much fun. I think, yeah, I think that 70.3 Worlds in New Zealand would have to be the best. I
Nice.
mean, it's hard to choose because there have been
Yeah, of
so
course.
many,
Yeah, yeah,
but that's probably the
yeah.
best.
Nice one. And what does a week of training look like? And I know it's different as we go along, but generally, what do you
Yeah,
try and fit in?
I I tend to do somewhere between 18 to 20 hours of training a week, something like that. But that includes 3 to 4 hours of Pilates, strength work, and then some mobility and flexibility work every day. Because, as I say, heading into the second half of your 50s, it's becoming even more important. So swim, bike, run, it's probably about, I don't know, 13 to 15 hours a week, something like
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And what does that consist of? Is it?
that. So I'll generally try and swim 4 or 5 times a week.
Mm,
We're lucky, live very close to a pool, so I know that always makes it. Yeah, it's the logistics of swimming are often the hardest, aren't they? Getting
mm,
to a pool, so we're lucky there. And biking, probably 4 bike sessions a week. I'm not one of these sort of zealots that says you can never use your turbo or you have to do everything structured inside. I tend to just mix everything up, and so
mm,
I'll in and out. So probably 4 bike sessions, couple that are harder, more structured, and then sometimes I'll just you just luxury of just riding your bike for a few hours in the sunshine. So and then run wise, it depends. I've had more Achilles niggles, frustratingly. So recently there hasn't been a lot of running, but
mm.
it would be three runs a week, something like that, and maybe four. It's sort of approaching a race as you get to like I'll add in a run off a bike or something like that.
Mhm. Cool, good. And finally, what are your well, we haven't talked about goals at all. So what are your short and your long-term goals?
Um, the short-term goal is I'm racing on Sunday doing the T100 in London. So
All
that's
right,
the short-term goal. It's really
cool.
short-term. So there's that coming up this weekend, which will
Good
be
luck.
nice. Yeah, thanks. So looking forward to that.
Mm,
And then long-term, um, well, really long-term, it's I just like to carry on doing what I do and training and racing for as long as I can, really.
mm,
Whilst I can. I don't ever take any of it for granted.
mm,
So I'm well aware that things can change very quickly. Earlier in the year, a friend of ours who was only 32 very, very sadly died and from cancer, and the diagnosis happened very quickly, and she didn't survive long after the diagnosis, and it shocked everybody. Um, and things like that really do make a big impact, and you think, well, every day really, and getting old, and every day is really a privilege. And I know they sometimes can be looked upon as sort of almost quite nasty cliches, but they're so true.
mm,
So for me, long term, it's just about having the health and the ability to carry on training and racing for as long as I can. And I'd love to be that person
mm.
in the 70 to 74 age group that's still traveling and racing. That would be tremendous as a long term goal. I wouldn't really care where I was going or how I was doing, just the fact I was still doing it.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's when you hear stories like that, it's sort of like brings you back into reality, doesn't it? You know that
Totally, yeah.
life isn't forever, and
No,
you've got to enjoy not just the moment, which you should always try and do, which is a really difficult thing to do for most of us, being in the moment, but also just living and enjoying each day, as it comes, and whatever it might throw at you, and trying to be
yeah,
positive about what comes your way as well.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's my philosophy of uh, of life. It's just enjoy it because we're only here once,
yeah.
allegedly.
No, totally agree.
Well, listen, thank you ever so much once again. We can wrap it up, and it's been lovely to hear your story. And
Yeah, no, that's
good luck at
great.
the
No, I really
weekend, and
appreciate.
yeah, good luck at the weekend and good luck with everything else that you go on and do.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to meet you, and
Cool.
thanks for the time.
And that was Pete Eggleston, double world champion, author, an all round really nice, humble guy. Really enjoyed chatting to him. I am really looking forward to reading his book, which you can buy on Amazon. Like it is What Has Triathlon Ever Done For Me? Head over to Amazon and yeah, look it out and give it a read. And let me know in comments what you think of it. So that's it for this episode. Like I say, a big thank for Pete coming on the pod and his wife Lucy for setting it up in the first place. Really do appreciate it because, like I said, we can't do this without you guys. If you would like to get in touch and come on, you can email us at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. We are on all the socials. Our Instagram is Agegroup Multisport Podcast, or the handle is amp_podcast. So you can DM us on that. Facebook is my name, Richard Joseph Conway. I'm not sure why it's changed, but it has. So you can DM us on that. X is the Agegroup Multisport Podcast, and we have our own YouTube channel, which again is AmpGB, or the Agegroup Multisport Podcast in the search. On there are all the podcasts that we've done and videos, some from former guests, but mainly from me now. Just a bit of a vlog of what I get up to. So yeah, give that a listen, give it some support. Please do tell your friends about this podcast and just share it around your communities, and let's get it out to more people because that really does help. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.